Well, here's the fourth and final, I think, video in my series, What Will Make America Great? And I'm thinking here about why haven't we undertaken reparations relative to slavery and what to do. So in part one, I talked about the whole reality of coming without permission, stolen land, stolen people. I then, in the second one, talked about the complexities of guilt and responsibility when there's multiple generations and multiple culpable parties. And then in the last video, number three, I talked about the history of reparations and the fact that there's actually precedent for us doing so, raising the question why we have not done so relative to slavery. I'm going to offer my thoughts about the reasons for this and then some ideas about steps. And I think there's at least three reasons. One reason, often cited by those who oppose the whole question of reparations, is the complexity of determining recipients in the case of reparations relative to slavery. If the assumption is that only those who are descendants of enslaved people should receive reparations, then finding out who the descendants are is, of course, necessary and admittedly difficult. I would add, however, I think this ignores the fact that the nuclear fallout of slavery among African Americans extends far beyond the bomb site, so to speak, of those who are direct descendants. Having said that, a second reason, and I referred to this in the second video, is the complexity involved in assigning responsibility. So there's the recipients, and then there's the responsible parties. In addition to our nation, there's the responsibility that would have to be laid at various Arab nations and African nations' feet as well. So who should pay or take steps in reparation? None of those are completely unique, however, to the matter of slavery. And yet, as I outlined in the third video, there's precedent for reparations in spite of these difficulties. And that leaves me with the inescapable conclusion that at the end of the day, the primary reason for not addressing this is the pervasive and systemic racism in our society. Martin Luther King Jr., of course, saw this clearly, and in his 1967 book, Where We Go From Here, he reframed the reparations question by shifting the question from reparations to the eradication of poverty for all Americans, white and black. I'm sure he did so in part because he knew that a focus on only African Americans would not gain sufficient political support in a white majority. However, it's also true that his larger vision was that of liberation and justice for all, both black and white. So it's in keeping with everything we can read in his public speeches. Well, what to do? I'm going to share a few things. One, acknowledgement and apology. Even though it's been done, it needs to be done again and truly and publicly and authentically. I think it's important for governments, including ours, to face our pasts. And as representatives of that past and of past and present citizens, present leaders need to acknowledge and apologize for specific instances of injustice and oppression. A second step is address and redress. To avoid empty apologies, it seems fitting that some form of tangible redress be included, even though the amounts of finance or property involved in such actions will never really amount to more than some form of a symbolic gesture. And I see the amounts, for example, awarded to Japanese Americans and Native Americans that I've mentioned before in this same light. I think they were inadequate, but they were at least something. Three, I think keeping in mind that two wrongs don't make a right is important. Redressing one wrong can't be done in such a way as to create new forms of injustice. And here I'm thinking in particular, I know it's a very complicated and charged situation, but I am thinking specifically of what we've witnessed for decades in Palestine and Israel. It's just a glaring example of righting one wrong done to one people and taking important steps towards that, but by doing so by doing another wrong to another people. So two wrongs don't make a right. And finally, I think the big one is to reimagine ownership. And I realize this is unrealistic. I'm thinking here of the concept, for example, of Jubilee in the Jewish scriptures when land is returned to prior owners. I'm thinking of the fact that we all have to share the planet, hopefully, share it for a long time. And I'm thinking about things I know are idealistic and unrealistic and even impossible as I say this. But I think it's necessary to ask questions, for example, about the territory of nations and the borders of nations. I'm not talking about a totalitarian new world order of some sort. And in fact, I mean something far more difficult. I'm trying to imagine a world in which our human hearts universally would be willing to share the planet together. To quote the radical political platform of Jesus, it's a world in which we forgive and love enemies, we do good to those who mistreat us, in which we offer a shirt if we're asked for a coat, we go 2 miles if asked to go 1. It's a world in which I'm aware that the way I use the water and treat the air and handle my garbage has ripple effects across the entire planet for all those who share it with me. I'm not thinking about something difficult. I'm thinking about something actually that seems impossible for all humanity to be. Or is it? I mean, what if it worked? If enough people actually did so, ultimately, the question of reparations would take care of itself. Meanwhile, all I can do is try to be that kind of person myself in my very imperfectly executed daily life and invite others to join me. So I invite you